All right, everyone. The dust up over Jimmy Kimmel continues. I'll weigh in on my own thoughts on this particular story. Link in the description, archived, of course. He's been kind of sort of restored at ABC. Problem is that a lot of the sub-broadcasters don't want to carry him, and some are being rather non-committal. So he's been kind of restored to his role there, but it's not clear that every broadcasting network is actually going to carry the show at all. So he's in brownout mode at the moment. Here's my thoughts on Kimmel. I do think that it's good that he got punished. And I do think that it's good that we were able to make the argument, look, this is a broadcaster, they're under FCC rules and stuff, so if you're straddling that line, the threshold for being shit canned is different from if you're just like an independent broadcaster, like, you've got a podcast or something and you're doing it all yourself, or you've got your own group and you're not on TV or anything like that. You're doing mainly the internet thing. The rules are fundamentally different. This is something that liberals didn't seem to understand. The FCC has broad oversight authority over broadcasts that are being made public through TV and radio. It doesn't have any particular general oversight over the day-to-day activities of somebody who simply hashes in a webcam. These are not the same thing. And of course, the left told me for years, back when right-wingers were being banned left and right on Twitter and YouTube and so forth, hey, it's a private company, it's allowed to do what it wants. Sinclair Group is deciding not to run with Kimmel, at least at this time. They'll probably try to quietly slip him back in, but the other reason why he was canned in the first place, why he was put on indefinite leave, which is usually a term you do not want to hear when you're in the media. Um, what happened is that Jimmy Kimmel simply, his ratings tanked. His ratings were steadily going down. He was no longer able to hack it, so to speak. He was no longer capable of drawing in the same kind of audience that he had like 10 years ago. And that's because he's gotten boring and stale because, every other word out of his mouth has something to do with Donald Trump and being orange, poop pants, and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's funny at first, but, 8 years on, at some point, it gets a little bit old. And Kimmel fell prey to that the same way that many others within comedy and infotainment have done. He fell by the wayside as a result of this particular behavior. So it wasn't really. This is mostly a foil for them wanting to shit on him anyway. I don't know whether they're going to just quietly absorb him and be like, okay, we gave you admonition, so, behave because we don't want any fucking problems with the FCC. By the way, there is another aspect of the story that isn't being mentioned enough. The FCC had not actually taken official action when he was canned. So when, leftists came out and said, well, Donald Trump is weaponizing the FCC, the only thing that had happened is that Carr had come out and complained about, the things that were said about Charlie Kirk and 10 things on the network. They had not taken, there was no lawsuit filed, there was no paperwork filed. It was an unofficial statement, effectively, more than anything else. And it was the actual network that made the decision to pull the trigger. It was not the the U.S. government. And by the way, I wouldn't support it if that were to happen. I do not believe that Jimmy Kimmel's comments warranted being cancel cultured, yeah, as the left would now put it. Were they, rude? Yes, absolutely. Is it protected speech? Yeah, it is. That's why it was the network that decided to take him off the air instead of the government, because the government, in all likelihood, in a legal case, would lose if they tried to directly can him, force him to be fired for the things that he said. He did not come out and say he wished that there would be more assassinations. He didn't come out and call for violence or anything like that. He was just being rude, like he usually is, and untalented, as he always is. Well, honestly, I hope that he stays on the air, and here's why. Because he'll say more deranged things as he slowly spirals into, the abyss, so to speak. He'll say more zany shit and destroying his own reputation in due time, and eventually probably does get fully canned by the network, by the way, as a result of this. If, the ratings keep going down, eventually can't really justify your 8-figure-a-year budget, which is what Kimmel gets. He's a shit ton of money doing what he's doing. Honestly, if I were somebody like Kimmel, if once you get to the top, once you got fuck you money, I don't understand why more of these people don't just haul off and commit career suicide. Oh, this is my last show. Screw yous all, and something like that, and then they just walk off, and they disco dance down back through the hallway and say, "No, I'm going home. Bye." Enjoy losing the broadcast. That would be funny. I think there have been a couple of instances in which somebody who got really big and so they no longer care just literally walks off. I think there have been a couple of examples, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. I think back in the 2000s, something like that happened at one point. But I can't remember which person it was. They all run together. They're all legacy media and infotainment anyway. This will probably continue for a while. If I had to guess, I'd say probably over the course of some months, they'll get most of those sub-broadcasters back aboard. Kimmel will be live again, but because of the highly politically charged atmosphere right now, I don't see how his show with the ratings dropping fairly rapidly. I'm not sure how it can actually survive. There's another element to it, though, that's also not discussed enough. Leftists have become further and further and further left. This is what's pulling Kimmel in that direction. It's about ratings and about appeasing people more than it even necessarily is about his own private opinions. The problem is that as you continue moving in that direction, other people are outflanking you. That is that the true, total goofy leftoids are way further to the right than Jimmy Kimmel. Like they're not at Maher and Kimmel and Dore modes. They're way, way beyond that. And so they've basically outflanked people like Kimmel, actually, because how far left can you possibly go? I mean, unless he comes out dressed as Che Guevara and with a BLM flag and stuff like that, speak truth to power. It's going to be real difficult, especially also he's getting older. And a lot of that, the youth left cohort that wants to watch, that kind of infotainment, they're too busy on TikTok and shit like that. They're not really, or Reddit threads. They're not really watching Kimmel as much anymore. It's no longer the era of the millennials. This is the era of Gen Z. So the writing is pretty much on the wall for him if he can't get new material. That's about all. Peace out.